You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep042. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Hello and welcome back to the Tricorder Transmissions. I am Craig Cohen.
And I'm Jeff Hewlett.
And Jeff, we are here again for another episode, and this week we are talking about obsession.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite episodes. Probably seems like an odd one to pick for a favorite, but I quite enjoyed this episode, so I'm excited to be talking about it today.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And I got to tell you that I am becoming slightly obsessed with the idea of going to the annual Star Trek convention in Las Vegas.
I know, it's what, maybe 8 weeks from now?
Yeah, it's coming up. It's the last week of July into August.
Yep.
So we got our plane tickets sorted out. Our accommodations are taken care of, nice. And we also got some of the photo opportunities locked in as well.
Yeah, that's going to be great. So, we just met Walter Koenig at a convention here in Jersey a few weeks ago, and we decided that we're going to go full bore, and we booked Shatner and Nichelle Nichols for the Vegas trip.
Yeah, it's so exciting. It's one of those things where you're not really going to believe it until it actually happens.
I know, and I don't know what I mean. You're only going to get a couple of seconds with Shatner, but I mean, what do you say to William Shatner, and more importantly, what do you wear? I mean, am I going to wear my Shatner's World shirt? Am I going to wear something Trek related? Am I going to go, totally anti and pretend I'm too cool for school and just wear like a regular shirt, like no Star Trek anything? I mean, what do you do?
I don't know. And it's going to be one of those shirts that's going to be forever immortalized in that photograph. So I know a lot of my, there's a period of time when I was going to conventions where I would wear just a black t-shirt. So anytime you see a picture from, between like a 2-year period of me at a convention, I'm wearing a black t-shirt. And those never really get dated. So
that's a good idea.
But I've since moved away from that. I have like devoted or dedicated convention shirts now that I wear. But I haven't really thought about it. I am thinking about picking up, finally, one of the Star Trek shirts. Like the captain's actual tunic.
Yeah, I was thinking about picking one up myself. I think we were looking at the same website, but we are going to have oversized Tricorder Transmissions badges that we're going to be hanging around our neck. So those will be pretty cool to have in pictures with these old school Trek folks.
Yeah, and they'll serve a dual purpose. They'll promote the show, and then also, if anybody out there sees them, they'll know it's us. Unless somebody does some kind of rogue Tricorder Transmissions badges, which would be kind of cool too, because it would be promoting the show. But also, we are going to be putting up in the next couple of weeks sort of a show that we've talked about before, which is going to be the angle we're taking is sort of a focus on the convention for first-time attendees.
Yes.
So it's going to be pretty neat. We're going to be talking to this guy, Eric, who seems to really be, for lack of a better word or words, the king of cosplay. I mean, this guy does everything. He does Data. He's done Superman. He's done, from A to Z. If it's a character, he's probably done it. We're also going to be talking to, a good friend of the show and former guest and future guest, April A. Bear, about the panel that she'll be on and, sort of the perspective of what we can expect at panels. So we're going to try, just really, present a show that people that are going to a con for the first time can listen to and maybe get an idea of, what they should be doing and what to avoid. And then also, regular con goers can also probably get some really good insight as well. So I know I'm really looking forward to putting that show together. And I think it'll be a really, really fun listen.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, having never gone to this con before, I mean, we've been to tons of cons together, but this con is probably going to be a much larger scale convention than we're used to going to. So I'm going to be interested to hear tips and tricks from people who've been there or veterans of going to that particular con, because there's so much there, and it's a 4-day con, which is far longer than the cons that happen here in Jersey.
Yeah.
So, there's got to be plenty of content, and how do you pick which panels you're going to go to versus the ones you're going to skip? And because I think some of them overlap.
Yeah.
Too. So you got to figure out, if there's 2 panels that you want to go to at the same time, you're kind of up the creek. So how do you work out those decisions? Interesting.
Yeah, but it's also cool in the sense that it allows people to pretty much always have something to do. If one panel doesn't appeal to you, odds are another one's will. And if neither one of them appeals to you, there's going to be a whole show floor to explore with vendors and former Star Trek stars littered throughout. I know we're both pretty excited about Sherry Jackson.
Yeah, I'm definitely, and I think Grace Lee Whitney will be there. That'll be nice.
Yeah.
And and Bobby Clark.
Yeah, the Gorn captain himself, who I had the pleasure of meeting a couple years ago at a very, very small Trek convention they do here in Jersey. But yeah, he's super fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him again as well. So very neat. I'm sure you'll hear a lot about the convention in the coming weeks and the weeks after.
Yeah. So we'll have plenty of coverage to go around. I think we're going to be actually trying to do some recording at the actual convention as well. So,
yeah, it should be neat.
Yeah, maybe we can speak to some of the Facebook page people for the unofficial Trek convention Facebook page, and maybe some fans of the Tricorder Transmissions will be there, or maybe we'll make some new friends. So could be a very cool set of interviews we come back with. So looking forward to that. Maybe we'll get some FaceTime with April and Vernon too.
I would hope so.
Yeah, it'd be pretty awesome. So ready to launch into Obsession?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Obsession aired on December 15th, 1967, and a remaster happened on April 12th of 2008.
All right, and I have a little bit from the NBC press release that was issued on November 15th, 1967. Captain Kirk's career and the safety of the Enterprise are jeopardized by his compulsion to destroy a cloud-like creature which previously killed some of the crew in Obsession on NBC television network Star Trek Colorcast, Friday, December 15th. I know you love the Colorcast.
I certainly do. I will not belabor it now since I've talked about it a lot in the past. So we are going to start our scene-specific commentary in 3, 2, 1. All right. Look, and there must be a moratorium on the flybys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's yet another new Trek era element that we haven't heard of before. And this rock apparently contains something called tritanium, which is 21.4 times as hard as diamonds.
Yeah, and I love, Kirk estimates it as 20 times as much, and Spock corrects him with the exact figure. And I love how, Kirk sort of just shrugs it off to the point where he's sort of gotten used to it, and where it might bug somebody else, it's sort of second nature to him now to just sort of, let it slide.
He's kind of like, okay. I love how Spock uses the phaser as a mining tool.
Yeah.
Oh, this scene. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but this scene, I love this at the beginning because, YouTube is such a great resource. I know what you're laughing. I hope you know what you're laughing at. But there was a video that I saw, a really short video, where somebody took just that couple of seconds where Kirk squatted down to grab that piece of rock off the ground and inserted little fart sounds into it. So it made it seem like Kirk had farted and then was commenting on the fart smell as a sweet odor like honey. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. For some reason, it cracks me up.
Oh, man, that's great. Funny.
So
now I was going to point out that we get a little bit more. It seems like these phasers have so many different settings.
They do, and I think we're going to get another setting later on that we're going to learn about, right?
Yeah, the disruptor setting.
Yeah, and I think they name drop Phaser 2 again as well later on. But so they smell something that is a sweet odor like honey, and it immediately throws Kirk back into the past and remembers where he has smelled this before. And we're not going to get a lot of detail about it yet, but Kirk seems to have a very almost a visceral reaction to the smell, like he's automatically concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was 11 years ago, and it was he seems to have a lot of information here that he's not going to disclose all of at this moment. He's just going to kind of let it out in drips and drabs, and he's telling the red shirt guys to scan for something called dichronium, which is something that Spock says only exists in laboratory experiments.
Yeah.
So this is a great shot right here, by the way, with the red shirt guys in the foreground and the smoke coming out from over the ridge. I love the way they set that shot up.
Yeah.
And they the one guy trails off the screen solo, so you don't have to see the other two guys, but until it's too late.
Yeah. And this is where you really have to question the qualifications of these red shirts, because Kirk gave a very specific order that if you see this thing, fire.
Yep. But not much of a description as to what it's going to do, or Kirk has obviously experienced this thing before.
Yeah. But
he was kind of sketchy on all the details and just sends those poor red shirt guys in. So up overhead shot. We got two of them who look really pale white.
Yeah.
They all appear dead. Yeah. And Kirk's every red corpuscle in their bodies has been taken. What was that, Leslie?
I think so.
So we have the official on-screen death of a long-time Trek red shirt, Eddie Paskey, Ensign Leslie. So there's what?
I think he might pop up though, because
he
the
does.
Production order is skewed.
Yeah, well, supposedly here's a little tidbit. I looked this up because
Okay.
I thought that was Leslie, but this is officially his on-screen death. But there was a scene in the script that was not shot. He was brought back to life on the ship by some sort of serum that McCoy whips up, and that was actually verified by the director that scene did indeed exist in the script, but they just never shot it.
Wow.
So,
and that director is a director we've seen before, last on a Metamorphosis, Ralph Sinesky, and we'll also see his work upcoming on Return to Tomorrow, and he directed a total of 6 episodes, and we've already seen 2 really outstanding shots throughout this episode, so he brings a really, really nice touch to his episodes.
Yeah, this is one of those episodes I think that needs great camera choices, angle choices.
Yeah.
Because of the way this smoke creature has to come in and out of shots.
Yeah.
So, you kind of need to set those up well so that the fans that are blowing the smoke around can blow them in a nice direction and make it kind of work with the way things are set up.
Yeah, and what's kind of neat? We're about to hit like a 2-week period between Obsession and next week's episode, A Wolf in the Fold, that sort of have like a slight like horror element to them.
Yeah, they're kind of almost like murder mystery / horror little mini movies, if you will.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. These are what I consider like the late night Trek episodes. These are the ones that you like to see come on in syndication. When it aired at like 11 p.m. on PIX here in the New York, New Jersey area.
Yeah, they could have been like Outer Limits episodes.
Yeah. And I love this. This is like group chat here.
Yeah, this is like Skype within the Enterprise. Nurse Chapel's back again too, by the way.
Yeah, and Chapel gets some serious play in this episode.
Yeah, as she does in Wolf in the Fold too.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, she doesn't. I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's allowed.
No, it's not.
Oh, come on. How many times have I been wrong?
That's true. uh,
So this is one of those episodes where we're going to start getting more of Kirk's backstory.
Yes, that's one of the cool things about this episode that I like. You're going to get to learn a little bit about things that happened to Kirk earlier on, in fact, 11 years ago. And Kirk is prompting McCoy to look at the record tapes from a ship called the USS Farragut for some similarities between some events that happened on that ship to what's happening right now for the Enterprise people. So, Ensign Rizzo is, I think Chapel just said that his blood count is 60% less than normal.
Yeah.
So he was pretty much on the brink of death. But Kirk wants them to revive him a little bit so they can ask him some questions about what happened down on the planet.
Yeah.
But so here's another thing that just went by that I always seem to mention this when it happens because it kind of bugs me. So they're talking about the Enterprise. This is one of those subplots to add tension, but the Enterprise is supposed to be meeting up with the Yorktown to get some medical supplies to take to a place called Theta 7. So once again, they're going to places where man has gone before.
Yeah.
So where are we going where man has not gone before? So this is... why can't the Yorktown just bring the medical supplies?
Yeah, and this is one of those ticking time bombs that they had to sort of insert into the episode with the idea that this medication is perishable. Yeah,
and it doesn't seem to me to be as heavyweight. For some reason, it didn't feel as heavyweight to me as the opposite side of the story, which is Kirk's obsession with the creature. I thought the creature seemed much more of a looming threat than not getting the medicine on time. I guess maybe they didn't go enough into what the medicine was supposed to cure.
Yeah, but I mean, Kirk even dismisses it. He says, hey, sure, we're going to lose some lives if this medicine isn't delivered, but I have a responsibility to find out, what this threat is that that killed some of my crew members, and I have a responsibility to even stop it.
Yep, I agree.
And I like this scene here because McCoy's going to call Kirk out on it.
Yep.
Where Kirk is sort of talking to this half-conscious Rizzo, and he's almost sort of leading him on.
Yeah, he's kind of trying to get out of him what he wants to hear.
Yeah,
in a way.
And I like the fact that McCoy calls him out on it, even though Kirk does end up being right. But it did seem to me watching the scene that I'm like, yeah, he's sort of telling you what you want to hear. It's what I guess in court scenarios they call that leading the witness.
Yeah, pretty much. So in a nod to continuity, which is something that the original Trek series is usually not very well known for, to wake up Rizzo, McCoy actually gave him a shot of cordrazine.
Yeah.
Which is what McCoy injected himself with in City on the Edge of Forever that made him go crazy. So the name of the medication stayed the same.
Yeah.
So nod to the writers here that they brought that little piece of continuity in if you picked up on it.
I'm surprised Harlan Ellison didn't create all kinds of legal hassles, claiming to be the creator of it and not signing off on them using the name again.
Yeah. Another little element to the lawsuit, huh? So Chapel seems to be getting a lot of lines in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So she's going to get quite a few more here, too.
Yeah, she's going to have a really, really important scene later on, in my opinion, in terms of, character work, if you will, for her.
Yeah. So Spock just said something really interesting here, too.
Yeah.
That we haven't really heard before. He said they're scanning the surface of the planet looking for this creature, and Kirk has had them scanning for this dichronium element, but they're not picking it up. And Spock says in order to hide from the Enterprise scanners, you would have to be able to change your molecular structure.
Yeah.
So it's possible to hide from the Enterprise scanners.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough. We did not know that. So enter Ensign Garavik, who has some sort of a past relationship, or somebody Kirk knows has a past relationship with this particular ensign. And Kirk makes it a point to tell the guy that he's not going to get any special treatment aboard the Enterprise.
Yeah.
But we don't know who or what the connection is just yet. But they're leaving a lot of things kind of open. Oh, there's the name drop of Phaser 2, by the way.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. You don't hear a lot about Phaser 2.
Yeah.
What was the last time we heard about Phaser 2? Was that... I can't remember now.
I know that some of our listeners are probably once again yelling at their listening device.
Was it Devil in the Dark? No.
Yeah, that's pretty far.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, no. I think it was Devil in the Dark because they're talking about the Settlers had Phaser 1, but they have Phaser 2, and yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember. I got to look back. Sorry, everybody. A lot of tricorder use going on here. Kirk knotted up his tricorder strap there.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to hang this thing around my neck.
It almost looks like that might be the out of the box state.
Yeah. He's like, we need a second tricorder for this scene. Go get one. So,
here he is again talking about what to do if you see this thing.
Yeah. And here we are in an outdoor set built inside, and they could have just gone and used Vasquez Rocks again. This would have been a perfect Vasquez Rocks episode. That's a shame. But these are kind of cool sets, though. Yeah. They look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that the sets really brought to the Star Trek were, your sky or your background elements could look very, very otherworldly.
Yeah, that is one bonus with the painted backdrops. And there comes the cloud.
Yeah, and here's an interesting thing with the remastered effects. Later on, we're going to see a digital version of that cloud effect, and it's kind of odd that they didn't replace the cloud in this sequence.
Yeah, that is interesting. That because during these sequences where it's attacking, it couldn't be smoke. It had to be a different effect. So, I have a question for you, actually.
I love it.
About this previous scene. I never thought about this before. So what you see is the cloud comes over the ridge. Ensign Garavik takes a shot at it. Then they shift over to Kirk and the other two red shirts, and they hear the phaser firing.
Yeah.
Why do phasers make noise? Laser pointers don't make noise. Why would a phaser make noise?
I guess because it's a deadly weapon.
That's what I was thinking. I think maybe they actually make a phaser have some sort of a sound output so that you know when one's being fired.
Yeah.
But it just seems like you have a laser pointer or some other light emitting or laser emitting device. They don't make noise now in our lives here in the real world. So I wonder why you shoot a phaser and it makes that noise. Very interesting. I wonder if any Trekkies out there have an explanation other than the one we've mentioned here, and we can fire one back at us.
Well, the other thing is it makes different noises as well.
Yeah, depending on the power output,
which also might factor into it.
Yeah, you jack up the power and it makes a higher pitched noise, right? So I love the fact that this is the second episode in the second season where they have utilized the Moby Dick Captain Ahab story.
Yeah.
So the first one, of course, was Doomsday Machine, and it was Commodore Decker who was Ahab. And in this episode, it's Kirk.
Yeah.
So we've got two different takes on the classic storyline with two different Starfleet high-ranking officers in the Ahab role.
Yeah.
So kind of cool in a way. And I remember after seeing the Doomsday Machine as a kid, I always thought, I wonder, why wasn't Captain Kirk more obsessive? Why, what would it have been like if it was Kirk in the Commodore Decker role? But this episode answers that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty cool. And Kirk seems to get more and more agitated as the episode goes on. And he's actually grilling poor Ensign Garavik now. He's actually going to make Garavik doubt himself here.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much going to send this poor kid into a psychosis.
Yeah, and McCoy even mentions that he might have been a little hard on him. And Kirk has a point though in the fact that with the knowledge they have at that moment, his hesitation cost the lives of 2 crew members.
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. So Kirk is kind of going on his own hunches here. But I thought to myself as I was watching this that it may have been he confines him to his quarters and relieves him of duty, but maybe it's kind of half punishment and half trying to keep him safe.
Yeah.
Because the kid actually does mean something to Kirk.
Uh-huh.
We're going to find out in a little bit who exactly he is to Kirk, but I thought it was an interesting move on Kirk's part because, I don't know if he's necessarily deserving of being confined to quarters for, making a poor judgment call.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've seen worse transgressions in the past, and people weren't punished like that.
Yeah, and we get a quick cutaway to it almost looks like a scene where like a 12-year-old is sent to his room without
a little
dinner.
overacting there. But still good.
Yeah.
Still effective. And I love this moment here where we get a little Ahab here out of Kirk. He's going to accuse his senior officers of conspiring against him as Scotty kind of pushes back again and is telling Kirk, listen, man, we got to get that medicine over to those people. And Kirk says, I'm getting tired of my senior officers conspiring against me, but immediately kind of backpedals a little bit.
Yeah.
And
no Chekhov or Sulu on the bridge at this moment.
No, Chekhov's right there.
Oh, there's Chekhov. Yes, I'm sorry. Seated.
Yeah.
So Chekhov, he gets a lot of play in Spock's sort of science position this season. We've seen him there. Within the last couple episodes, he took position there.
Yeah, he is kind of the jack of all trades, whereas poor Sulu only flies the ship.
Yeah,
Chekhov can do everything else.
Except when he was doing that brief side assignment as the botanist.
Yeah, well, that's... Yeah, we need more of that Sulu as the botanist. I like him as a botanist.
Yeah.
So here we go. Is another significant Spock moment here.
Yeah, he's asking McCoy for advice.
That's a little bit of different than what we've seen before. Now, this little laboratory that McCoy has is kind of cool, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
some neat little machines going on in the background, and still there's that red glass with stuff behind it. What's behind that glass? It looks like bottles or canisters or something, maybe.
Yeah. And now we get the title of the episode.
Yes. Obsession.
Yeah, and Spock is explaining, I guess, his lack of understanding of what obsession is.
Yep, and he's asking McCoy if he's read up on the incidents that happened on the Farragut, and here we're going to get the reveal that the captain of that ship 11 years ago, the Farragut, was Captain Garavik, who is young Ensign Garavik's father, and who was also Captain James T. Kirk's first commanding officer.
Yeah, so a ton of information laid out there, and some very important information related to Kirk.
Yep, and it was Kirk's first deep space mission on the Farragut, and we're going to find out that Captain Garavik was Kirk's captain from the moment he left Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
So that was his first active duty role, so it's weighs heavily on his mind, and it's a significant part of his past.
Yeah, and here we have, I guess, you can't really knock in on the Enterprise, huh?
No, McCoy just walks right in.
And then he says, is it okay if I, if I come in?
Yeah, he's like, hey, how's it going, man? And I love how Captain Kirk is kind of doubting himself in that captain's log there at the end.
Yeah.
Saying, he recognizes that he's obsessed. I think it's a little bit more than Ahab really looked into his own psyche. I mean, there were moments where he, realized that he might be making a mistake, but this is really early on in the obsession for Kirk to be recognizing the fact that he's obsessed, and he becomes more obsessed. So,
yeah, I mean, well, if you think about it, he dealt with this creature, for lack of a better word, 11 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
and it's moved to a completely different part of the galaxy.
Yep.
And he knows what it can do.
Yep. He's well aware. And there we go. We have McCoy revealing that Kirk's rank on the Farragut was lieutenant. Lieutenant James T. Kirk. So a lot of information about Kirk's past revealed there. Pretty cool stuff.
And that was seemingly his last mission on the Farragut?
I don't know if that's really dealt with here.
Yeah, I mean, they lost the captain and 200 other crew members. I mean, that's a pretty severe, body count for a starship.
Yep, and they're reading off a commendation that Kirk got, that he was despite the fact that he didn't, he kind of hesitated and missed the opportunity to take the creature out.
Yeah,
the captain didn't ding him for that. So, interesting side note here, and we like to bring up things that happen in Trek novels on this show that relate to what's currently going on. So, as always, there is a mirror version of this in the books, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Oh, neat.
So there's a short story that takes place in the mirror universe that tells about the young mirror Kirk in the same scenario, but in that scenario, he actually somehow orchestrates the death of Captain Garavik and 200 members of the Farragut crew by utilizing that creature.
Oh.
So somehow he sets up a way for that creature to get on the ship and kill the captain and a couple of hundred other people.
Wow.
So that seems fitting for a mirror Kirk, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool that they kind of turned that around and manipulated that into an interesting story. I might have to seek that one out.
Yeah, that's neat.
And read it. But now I love this setup here. I love this setup that they've got Spock hanging out outside the door eavesdropping, right?
Yeah. It's almost like an intervention.
Yeah, and here he comes.
Boom.
Ta-da!
You guys, what did you set me up for here?
Yep. You know what I love about this particular scene, though, is that even though Kirk is kind of, pushing the boundaries of his authority, and he's like threatening McCoy does not back down. And in fact, he goes even further. He's not scared of Kirk at all. He's like, all right, you know what? I got Spock here as my witness.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to file in my medical report, everything that's going on here and the fact that I think you're unfit for duty. And sure enough, Spock is right there and he's standing up to Kirk too. And Kirk is pissed enough to say, forget procedure, ask me your questions, same as we saw in the Deadly Years, right?
Yeah.
Like, the heck with this. Just ask me. I can answer. So now they're going to present him with the vaccines that we're delaying. And Kirk's going to lay out what I think is a very compelling reason to forego those current orders and take this creature out.
Yeah.
Now, of course, McCoy and Spock still aren't completely convinced, of the existence of this thing. They haven't really experienced it yet. They're just kind of going on Kirk's obsessive descriptions of what's going on here and the evidence that a couple of crew members have been killed.
Yeah, and Kirk's take on it is pretty much a play on Spock's the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
That good observation, yeah.
As opposed to the few in this case, as opposed to the one. But he's basically saying we have a serious threat here.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of popped into my head here during the scene as well is that McCoy and Spock have been on some wacky missions with Kirk where, they've gone along with Kirk's hunches and it's paid off in the past, but here they seem to be doubting the heck out of him.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit strange that they waver so much in their own behaviors. Great lighting here, by the way.
Yeah.
On Kirk casting the shadow in the background there. I love that. That's great stuff. But, the situation is diffused.
Yeah.
And, and I love how Kirk is level-headed enough to say, you know what, you guys were doing what you thought was right by the book, and I'm not gonna hold it against you.
Yeah.
I love it. This is a great three-way conversation between these characters. I think this is a good character moment to pay attention to.
Yeah, and it also shows that their relationship is more than just a captain, his doctor, and his first officer. And it really shows that sort of blending of official ranks and friendship.
Yep. Totally.
And how they can sort of coexist without really being considered a conflict.
Right.
It can almost sort of augment those roles.
So we are in space now. The creature has left the planet, and they are chasing it at warp 8.
Yeah.
And of course, here's Scotty in his famous lines that he always says, the ship can't handle it. We're going to break apart. We're going to blow up. The ship can't go this fast for a sustained amount of time. And here's Kirk, once again, make us go faster, man. And Scotty complies. Okay, all right, I'll do it. So the creature is, here we're going to get the magnification 12, extreme magnification. We're going to see the remastered shot of the cloud creature. And Kirk is visibly shaken by it. That's a pretty cool effect.
Yeah, and it's really surprising that they didn't use that for the on-planet stuff, and maybe it was just too hard to integrate.
Yeah, probably, because they would have to go in and scrub out the cloud effects. That would take a lot of time, probably, to go in and digitally remove the cloud and insert the remastered cloud. And
yeah,
probably a lot of work. But so Spock is scanning it, and he says that it exists between matter and energy and potentially uses gravitational fields for propulsion.
Yeah.
So I love that shot. Cloud looks really neat.
Oh, it looks great.
Yeah, fantastic. And, it's another one of those remastered effects that I don't think breaks the feel of the show.
Yeah.
It really fits in well. It's not overblown. It doesn't look too unrealistic. It actually looks really realistic, but not in a way that detracts from the 60s feel of the show.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those hits. We've had very few misses when it came to the remastered effects so far, and we've pointed those out.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, here's another. There's been a couple of examples so far of plot convenience setup that have bugged me about this episode. And
yeah, this is one of the worst.
Yeah, and so Scotty was doing some work down in engineering there, and left a hatch open, and he mentions it in passing, of course, and then he mentions it again, that the hatch is open.
Yeah.
Kirk blows it off, and we're gonna see Ensign Garavik, break the vent in his room.
Yeah.
Here by getting mad. But this is a great Chapel scene, by the way.
Yeah, because Chapel is pretty much BSing her way through this scene with him, where she's saying doctor's orders require that he eats.
Mm-hmm.
And McCoy really gave no such prescription, but she's sort of doing what she thinks is best for this patient.
Yeah, she's got this record tape in her hand saying that this is McCoy's actual prescription, and all it says is eat.
Yeah.
And she's going to threaten him with being hauled down to sickbay and fed intravenously if he defies the doctor's orders.
Yeah.
So look at Chapel employing some psychology there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. A little bit of a comedy moment here as she puts the tape back in the bin.
Yeah, McCoy, notices and asks what it is, and it turns out to be a survey on
some respiratory
disease.
Now, there's clearly nothing on the front of that piece of plastic.
Well, maybe there's like a Braille.
Yeah. Well, he's not rubbing his finger across it. Great. So did you notice when she was giving him the tray of food, it was that colored Play-Doh food again?
Yeah, from Journey to Babel.
Yeah. And we're going to see the or we already saw actually the flinging of the lid. Oh, here it is. The flinging of the lid top and is going to break the. There's the Play-Doh food. I was a little ahead of myself.
Yeah, and Garrovick, we should talk about the actor here. It's Stephen Brooks. Died in 1999 at the age of 57, and he's probably most known, than for Star Trek for the 2 seasons on the TV series The FBI he did, starting in 1965. And we did get that major movie setup moment where he threw the cover, causing that switch to engage.
Yep. So we've got a couple setups. We've got the open hatch that Scotty left open, which seems really weird to me that Scotty would leave a hatch open. Yeah. And now the busted vent in Garrovick's quarters. So now this is really awesome. I love this shot here, this remastered shot of the phasers firing at the cloud.
Yeah.
That is awesome, where the cloud reconfigures itself so the phasers fire straight through. Now that's something that they couldn't have achieved, back in the day with the original effects. So that was one of the things that they added to this episode. Oh, look, they finally have photon torpedoes again. I love how they become they exist and they don't exist.
Yeah.
And Uhura gets a little line and a finger point there to say it's coming.
Yeah, she's doing the play-by-play.
Yeah, she's calling it out for everybody. So, and this is cool because Spock says the deflector shields will not stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to give us an explanation why. If it uses gravitational forces to propel itself, I guess it can somehow make its way through. Up in the number 2 impulse vent, there it goes.
Yep.
And sure enough, thanks, Mr. Scott. Thanks for being so lax in your duties, buddy. Yep, and something has entered the number 2 impulse vent. Dun, dun, dun. Negative pressure. So they're going to actually reverse the pressure in the vent and try to blow the thing back out.
Yeah, and this is another one of those moments where you see how important the captain's knowledge of the ship is. I mean, the captain really needs to know everything. And here he had an instant sort of solution for how to deal with this creature getting on board.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be entirely effective, but at least he had an answer.
Yep.
Which is really, it showcases what a good captain really, the skill set that he requires.
Exactly. And here's another 3-way conversation where McCoy is roasting Kirk and Spock says, "Listen, guys, shut up. It's academic now. Things after us. We need to figure this out."
Yeah.
So great. Spock grounds the 2 of them and gets them back on track. And now this is where they get into a little bit of conjecture. So, and I love this. Kirk says, "Try flushing radioactive waste into the ventilation system of the ship."
Yeah.
Radioactive waste into the ventilation system, so it's going to go all over the ship and people are going to breathe it in?
Yeah.
That seems a little questionable. So now here Spock says the creature has an ability to throw itself out of time sync. Where did that come from?
That's well, it basically is a plot device to absolve Kirk and Garrovick,
right,
of sort of letting them off the hook.
Yeah. So
it's saying that regardless of how you responded, you wouldn't have, everything that happened still would have happened.
Pretty much. So yeah, and then Kirk is not really buying into it yet. He will shortly, but he's still not kind of letting the psychology get into his head that it wasn't his fault. So he's still going to hold on to that obsession. But this scene really makes me raise my eyebrows, though.
Spock style?
Yeah, I mean, Spock is a non-emotional Vulcan. So why does he feel the need to be a psychologist for this ensign?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't Dr. McCoy do that job, or Nurse Chapel? Why does Spock feel the need to personally go to this guy's quarters and try to make him understand it's not his fault?
Well, maybe Spock sees value in his what he can contribute as a crew member here.
Possibly.
So he could be just, facing this from a completely logical, point of view.
Yeah, or maybe it's a plot device to put Spock in the same room as the creature for a great commercial stinger.
Yes.
Oh, and maybe I'm right, because here it comes.
Yeah. And I like how Spock pointed out that kindness is another human sort of a gesture.
Yes. And there's the smell. So here it comes, coming out of the vent. And I love how Spock, the door just opens.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to press the button. It just opens Sometimes it opens automatically. Sometimes you have to press the button.
Yeah. Maybe that's tied to the red alert, though.
Oh, potentially.
Maybe in red alerts, it's just like, hey, boom.
Oh, good observation.
Yeah. Did you think that Spock was potentially mind melding with this or attempting to?
No, I just thought he was trying to do a really bad job at blocking the vent off his hands.
See, I give Spock more credit than that.
I don't know. Well, I guess he could have. I'm sorry, he couldn't mind meld with it. I don't see why not. He can mind meld with everything else.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I was like, I wonder if that's what he was attempting to do.
And now they've reversed. I guess they reversed the fans and they're sucking the thing back out of the cabin there. But so now we have this moment where we don't know if Spock is dead or alive. So it's like Schrodinger's Spock. He could be dead. He could be alive.
Yeah,
we don't know until we open the door. So I like the that concept. Yeah. So Ensign Garrovick should be dead, laying in there, and of course Spock has emerged from the room completely unscathed, and thankfully it's his Vulcan blood that saved him.
Yeah.
But here's a little tidbit about Spock's physiology, what we didn't know about him yet. So he is going to say his hemoglobin is based on copper and not iron.
Oh, okay.
So we learn a little bit more about Vulcan biology.
Mm-hmm. And he's saying that I even probably left a little bit of a bad aftertaste in the creatures. He got more than he bargained for. He's used to, I guess, human.
Yeah, so bad that it's leaving the ship.
Yeah.
So we could have just thrown Spock into it earlier on, and it would have flown away. Done. Episode over.
Well, you still would have had Kirk saying this thing needs to be stopped.
Of course.
To take a line from Picard, the line must be drawn here.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Picard moments. That's a great movie. I don't want to diverge into another conversation about Next Gen, but that movie is fantastic. So we technically could cover that in this series, since it is sort of related with the Zephram Cochrane link.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, now I love the fact that Scotty is just making a blanket call for Kirk, and it's just coming out of a thing in the wall. Like, he doesn't have to know where Kirk is on the ship. He's just paging Kirk, and Kirk just goes to the nearest communication console and talks back to him.
Mm-hmm. Although that could all be sort of tied into your communicator, and it might be locating you based on that.
I don't see any communicators on their belts. That's a little far-fetched. I don't know.
Don't they always carry their communicator, though? Or do you think that's just something for when
then why wouldn't he call him directly on his communicator?
Yeah.
Why would it have to be in the hallway? So, little bit of communing here with Kirk and Garrovick, talking about, whose fault was what. And Kirk kind of railroads Garrovick into talking himself through the scenario and reaching the conclusion that it wasn't a mistake that he delayed shooting, because it wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah.
Right. So Kirk tries to do the same thing Spock just tried to do, but is actually effective, where Spock was not effective in changing Garrovick's mind. So, and also through this conversation, he realizes that it wasn't his fault 11 years ago either.
Yeah.
That, puts him back on active duty too. There you go. So that's been wrapped up. So, kind of convenient that creature left the ship, because they probably would have all been toast.
Yeah.
If that thing stayed on the ship. If you follow this episode through to the end and find out how they actually killed it, they couldn't pull that off on the ship. They would have had to come up with some other solution, right? Because you can't really blow it up while it's on the ship. Yeah. Another call from the captain's chair to Scotty, asking for all the power he can muster.
Yeah. Now this sort of just popped into my mind here, watching Uhura sit in her station. Um, do they have like a set shift? Like, is there an overnight crew on the bridge?
That's a good question. I don't know. When does she sleep?
Yeah. When do they all sleep? I mean,
Well,
there
there's
has to
gotta
be a period of time where that bridge is manned by somebody else.
Oh, sure. Well,
It's
there's a
never
whole
just
nother series for you.
yeah, the second shift
Enterprise
or third
Shift 2. Yeah, Enterprise Night Crew. Oh, it's a good idea. So we learned that somehow, now this is another weird thing, somehow Kirk has some sort of intuition about this creature. Like, he keeps saying that he senses intelligence in it and blah, blah, blah. And now he said he sensed, because the smell of the creature changed after it came in contact with Spock, that he sensed that the creature wanted to go home.
Yeah.
Which is the Tycho star system, the planet Tychos 4 in particular. Now, the strange thing about that is that Spock jumps to the conclusion, and I don't know how, maybe he did mind meld with it, but he jumps to the conclusion that the creature is going home to reproduce. It's going home to spawn.
Yeah.
And if it does, it will reproduce by fission and split into thousands of parts. So that's a huge leap.
Yeah.
By the way. And not only that, but it's been 11 years since that thing has been seen. Who says it hasn't spawned in that time? I mean, during 11 years, it didn't spawn at all, and now all of a sudden, now it takes the opportunity to spawn. You know, it seems kind of strange that it wouldn't have already broken into a million pieces.
Yeah, or this could even be one of its offspring.
There you go. So we could have giant blood-sucking clouds floating all over the galaxy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the strange thing. They could have explored that a little more. Now I'm worried. Every time I see fog rolling in, man, I'm getting scared.
So now we've got this sort of TV and movie trope where they have a plan to take it out, but it's going to require somebody staying behind to trigger it, and there's the potential for them not to be able to come back.
Well, at least it's not the transporter, someone staying behind to operate the transporter again.
Yeah.
But I love that Spock kind of runs down this bizarre disaster scenario that you think, oh, this is far-fetched, right? This is just something he's mentioning. But of course, it has to happen.
Oh, yeah.
So when they blow up this bomb, if someone happens to be in transport during the time of the explosion, look at that, the way that thing floats by itself.
It's great.
Isn't that neat? And if they're in transport when the thing blows up, they may lose them in transport.
Yeah.
So, now that would never happen, right? Now, interesting little tidbit here about the bomb they're carrying is that is an ounce of antimatter.
Yes.
And it is as powerful as 10,000 cobalt bombs.
Yeah.
And Kirk says, let's hope it's as powerful as man will ever get.
Oh, yeah.
I guess he really hasn't seen Genesis yet, huh? So, at any rate, they're positioned and they're armed and they're ready to go, and conveniently, there comes the cloud, and I love how they just stand there and watch it take the hemoglobin, the hemoplasm, and do nothing. They just stand there. This is a good 15, 20 seconds at least. Talk about hesitation.
Yeah, maybe they want to make sure that it's taking the trap.
I guess. I mean, they could have just set the bomb and beamed out right there. I mean, that bomb takes out a good chunk of the planet.
Yeah.
As we'll see. So, brave move here by Garavik.
Oh, my God.
He's going to do the old karate chop to the neck knockout attempt.
Yeah, he thinks Kirk is sacrificing himself as bait.
Yeah, we know Kirk a little better than that.
Yeah.
But this kid's inexperienced. But I love how he just, boom. That's a brave move, man.
But it doesn't really take Kirk out. It just stunned him.
Yeah, it looked like he was out, but he's not. And Kirk slugs the poor kid, man.
This guy's no match for him.
Consider yourself on report. I love it. Kirk's going to discipline him if they get out of this alive, huh?
Yeah. So what do you think Kirk's play was going to be there?
I think pretty much what you're seeing now was going to be Kirk's play. I think he was going to stand there and
draw it in close enough.
Yep, and then wait for the last second beam out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think his plan has changed much except for the fact that Garvik is now along for the ride.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting little side note while we're waiting for this explosion is that Rizzo, the character Rizzo, was played by Jerry Ayers, who was also Ensign O'Herlihy in Arena.
Oh, okay.
So there's a Gorn tie to this episode. I can mention the Gorn.
Very nice.
Life is complete. So look how close that cloud's gotten to him. And it's just kind of hanging out there. So they beam out the last possible second. Boom. And here's Spock's disaster scenario coming into play where they're in transport mid-explosion.
Yeah.
And their atoms are being scrambled. Reset. He's resetting the transporter console and re-energizing. So I guess it's not a one-shot deal. I mean, you're kind of suspended there, and they can kind of reset it and try again and try again.
Yeah. Well, didn't they have one of? Isn't that how Scotty ended up appearing on the Next Generation? His Well,
he was suspended, in a tricorder. Yeah. Not tricorder, in a transporter loop. Cross-circuiting to A. What the heck does that mean? Cross-circuiting to A. And he's going to cross-circuit to B. Yeah, cross-circuiting to B. What the heck does that mean?
Hey.
I love how all these buttons have no labels. So Spock just has to know which ones to press at one time. Okay, press this button if someone is about to die in the transporter. Yeah. It's right next to the jettison pod button, actually.
Yeah. And it's interesting that they're standing.
Yep.
Kirk, wasn't he holding his communicator when they were?
He was. Yeah, I guess we can't question that too much, huh?
Yeah.
So McCoy, of course, now there was an interesting little religious thing that just happened there. So, McCoy, says, thankfully, what was I can't remember the line, but it was something about the Lord saved them or something like that. Yeah. Thank God they made it through okay. And Spock says there was no deity involved. It was my cross-circuiting.
Yeah.
That got them back. So, more,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, he just wants to make sure he gets credit for saving the day there.
Yeah, of course. Well, he deserves it. He deserves it.
But it actually shouldn't matter to a Vulcan.
No, it really shouldn't. There should be no hubris involved there. So look at that remastered explosion on the planet there. I love that crater that's left.
Oh, yeah. That's a nice little detail.
Yeah, they added that in. So, during the credit sequence for this, there is a tiger that is shown. Is that the tiger from Shore Leave?
I couldn't tell because that seemed like the first time we saw that tiger in the end.
There he is. I think that's a tiger from Shore Leave.
Yeah.
Because the tiger just shows up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh, and there's Nomad blowing Uhura's mind.
Bluey.
So there's a little interesting stuff pops up in the credit sequence here. So I guess we're at our essential voting time.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess you should take this here because I think you're going to be able to vocalize this maybe better than I could.
Yeah, well, I had this discussion with somebody the other day ahead of this recording, and there was the question of whether or not you could call an episode that you like non-essential, right? So there's that line that you have to draw between episodes that you just quote unquote really like and episodes that are essential, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I don't have to do that this time around.
Yes.
So I can say this is essential and have actual valid reasons for saying so, other than the fact that I just like this episode a lot. Just by the virtue of Kirk's, the details of Kirk's first assignment in space, the ship that he served on, the Farragut, Captain Garvik was his first captain out of the academy, and a description of an adventure that ship had that Kirk was involved with. So a pretty good slice of a significant portion of Kirk's past.
Yeah.
So I think that alone is enough to call this essential. But you also get that great little tidbit about Spock's biochemistry and the copper-based blood. So it was the first time we heard about that. That's very cool. And also the name drop of Phaser 2 with the disruptor setting is a minor addition, which I think is kind of cool to say. But I think Kirk's past alone is enough to call this episode essential.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna co-sign there.
All right.
Call this essential. You roll all those tidbits up that you mentioned, and you definitely have a essential viewing here.
Awesome. So that brings us to the end of Obsession, and we will be back again next week with another regularly scheduled episode of the Tricorder Transmissions. In the meantime, thanks to everybody who's been chiming in on social networking. Our friend Matt, who's been putting some great comments up for us. And if you want to join in on that, feel free to jump on Facebook.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. Find us on Twitter at TTT_pod, or check out our website at thetricordertransmissions.com. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
You're watching the Star Trek episode that holds the all-time record for crew casualties. If you notice, all the actors wearing red shirts get killed, except, of course, for Scotty, since the Star Trek cast regulars couldn't be killed. New crewmen, portrayed by bit players or stuntmen, had to be the victims. Keep track of the red shirts, and you too can predict who will be the next to go in this or any other episode, followed by McCoy's inevitable pronouncement, "He's dead, Jim."
A script came by one day about a woman whose fiancé was lost in the stars somewhere. And she was a doctor, and she wanted to sign on board the ship to go out and find her fiancé. And so I thought, Gene, I can play this part. But once after a network has said, no, we don't want you.
Death can make a signal.
They don't want to see you pop up again, certainly not in a running role, not in any role, really. I bleached my hair that night and lightened up eyebrows and everything. I went into the office early, and I sat there talking to Penny, his secretary. And in he walks, just looks at me, says hi, looks at Penny, says hi, and into the office he walks. And I said, well, I really blew that one. There wasn't even any difference to him. And he comes back out again, and he puts some papers and a couple of instructions on her desk. And he looks over again, just with a nod, and goes back in, and then it happened. Then the door opens again and says, Majel? And I said, Gene, if I can fool you, I can fool NBC. And he said, yeah, I guess so.
The phaser is to the crew of the Enterprise what the Colt 45 was to the Frontier Cowboy. We never left home without it. But how much does a phaser cost? Well, you can run down to the local gun shop and ask, or you can check the old records. How about $7,000 for 8 of them? That's what the original props cost. And they weren't very good, flat and ugly. Didn't even shoot a beam of light. The prop boys tried that on other models, but under the bright lights of the set, no flashlight beam would be visible. We didn't have laser beams then, so the phaser's visible rays had to be added optically. We went through a number of different designs, but the simplest was still the best.